Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, the situation now in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, is at an absolutely critical. The tension now is so high, it is about to boil over. Last night, at about 6:50 local time, ICE agents made a targeted traffic stop of a Venezuelan illegal alien who had come into this country under Joe Biden in 2022. However, instead of obeying lawful commands from ICE agents, remember, this is an illegal alien wanted by ICE. He then hit the gas pedal, and police were forced, ICE agents were forced, law enforcement, to then follow him. A very dangerous car chase ensued. He then crashed his car into a parked car. An agent then began to pursue him on foot. He continued to try to run. The agent pursued him. It was a long pursuit. He eventually caught up to the illegal, grabbed him, slammed him to the ground. When he slammed him to the ground, the illegal alien began to assault and beat the ICE officer. They were now grappling for control on the ground. Nearby, emboldened and encouraged by Waltz and Jacob Fry, the governor and the crazy mayor, urging citizens to side against ICE and to side with the illegals. Two so-called protesters came out of their apartment after watching an ICE agent now grappling with this illegal. One carrying a shovel, the other one carrying a broomstick. And they began to beat the ICE agent with the shovel and with the broomstick. As the officer was getting pummeled, the illegal got out of his grasp. He then wiggled out of his control, and then he grabbed the shovel, and he also began to beat the ICE agent. The ICE agent now being pummeled, being hit, being struck, fearing for his life, had to pull out his weapon, his gun, and fire multiple defensive shots. One of the shots hit the Venezuelan illegal in the leg. The illegal and the two other so-called protesters, these domestic terrorists, then fled back into the apartment building, into their apartment, where they barricaded themselves in. ICE then sent in reinforcements. They then kicked in the door. They grabbed the two that beat up the ICE agent, the two protesters, the activists. They're now in custody. The Venezuelan illegal is in a hospital. Non-life threatening. He will survive. It was a shot in the leg. And the ICE agent, thank the Lord, although hurt, beaten, his face smashed in, having suffered serious bodily harm, he's also in stable condition, and he will recover. However, it is now the second shooting by an ICE agent in Minneapolis in a week. And within minutes of the incident, Governor Waltz, Jacob Fry, told the activists what happened. They paraded it on their website. They then took to the TV and to the radio and essentially urged protesters to descend upon that area. Within 5 minutes, the place was swarming with anti-ICE rioters, anti-ICE insurrectionists. They then confronted ICE agents and several local police who were on the scene. They threw rocks. They threw projectiles. They threw ice. They threw frozen water bottles. They began to clash with ICE and police. ICE had no choice but to respond with pepper balls, tear gas, and other gas canisters. There were battles now, pitched street battles on the streets in downtown Minneapolis. So, as I speak to you, Minneapolis now is spiraling completely out of control. ICE agents now are being targeted. There are now street-to-street battles, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. Anti-ICE activists are now using fireworks, firing fireworks onto these ICE agents, looking to burn them alive. ICE agents now have to respond with pepper balls, rubber bullets, tear gas. The situation now is very dangerous. It is escalating. It is about to blow and become utterly violent. It's already fairly violent. But now ICE is telling everybody, get ready, because our agents now are under direct attack and direct siege. In the midst of all of this, where was the National Guard? Nowhere. Tim Walz, that Tampon Tim, is refusing he's deployed, he's mobilized the National Guard, but he refuses to deploy the National Guard. The local and state police have been told to stand down. And so these protesters, anti-ICE activists, have now erupted all across Minneapolis, confronting ICE, attacking ICE, seeking now to wipe ICE out and drive them from Minneapolis and from Minnesota. As all of this was taking place, fierce street battles, the city now, parts of it barricaded, businesses closed for over a week and no end in sight. Schools closed for over a week, no end in sight. As this insurrection now spreads like a cancer to almost the entire city, Tim Walz took to the TV airways. And I want you to listen now to what he said. Because, my friends, it's time to arrest him. What he is doing, and I'm choosing my words now very carefully, he is inviting and inciting violence. He is inviting and inciting rioting. He is inviting and inciting an open rebellion. As many now are openly saying, this is becoming Civil War 2.0. It's no longer Governor Walz. It's Confederate General Tim Walz. And we're now careening slowly towards a repeat of 1861. Walz and Frey now say that ICE, their words, is an occupying army leading an invasion. They are a modern-day Gestapo. This is, their words, Germany in the 1930s. And now listen to what the governor then said. Beyond reckless, beyond irresponsible, a disgusting, inflammatory lie. ICE agents are going door to door, hunting people of color. This was Tim Walz last night. Roll his address to Minnesota. Roll cut 9. Mike.
My fellow Minnesotans, what's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
That's a lie. That's a lie. And it's not just a lie. It's an incendiary, inflammatory lie. Think about this. If you're a moonbat, if you're a Democrat, this guy's your governor, you're going to trust him. And what he's saying to you is that ICE is going door to door, hunting down and killing people of color simply because they're people of color. I'm sorry, you don't have the right to scream fire in a crowded theater. You don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. You can't just make stuff up and make up the most inflammatory, mendacious thing that comes to your mind in order to get people to go out onto the streets by terrorizing and traumatizing them with something that is patently false and untrue. ICE is not going after people of color. ICE is not going door to door. ICE is not hunting Americans who happen to be black or brown or Asian or whatever. They're doing targeted operations against illegal aliens who have committed very violent crimes. Murderers, rapists, child molesters, drug traffickers. But this was only the beginning. Only the beginning. Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, I'm going to play the cuts, I want you to hear it, are now openly calling for organized resistance against ICE, saying that Donald Trump now is deliberately imposing a brutal crackdown because he wants to murder Minnesotans on the streets. Now, my friends, here's what I want to do. Because of what happened last night, and by the grace of God, that ICE agent is not dead. He is alive. Thank the Lord that illegal alien wasn't shot dead, only shot in the leg, because I believe if he was shot dead, like Renee Good, I think there wouldn't be much of Minneapolis left. I think they would have pulled another George Floyd 2.0. They would have burned entire neighborhoods to the ground. There's no question. There's no question. But what's happening now, the way the streets have become barricaded, the clashes, fireworks being hurled at ICE agents, trying to burn them alive, rocks, frozen water bottles being thrown, projectiles, clashes with police, streets, entire neighborhoods, entire downtown, the whole downtown area now completely blocked, shut down, businesses closed, schools closed, and this is now spreading throughout the entire city. With Walz's speech last night, and that's why I'm going to play it. I want you to hear it for your own, with your own ears. They've laid out the case. This is 1861 all over again. It is a neo-Confederate argument. You can hear it for yourself. That Trump is illegitimate, that ICE is illegitimate, that federal immigration law is illegitimate, and that they are now going to openly defy federal power, federal authority, federal law enforcement. It's an open rebellion. And what they're trying to do to justify this rebellion, this desire now to kick ICE out of Minneapolis and to preserve their sanctuary city and their sanctuary state, to protect all of these violent criminal illegals. Remember, they're illegals. They're not supposed to be in this country to begin with. Okay? It's a federal crime to come in this country illegally. Is that they're now willing to frame Trump and ICE as a modern day Hitler, the Nazis, and the Gestapo. Now, we're not talking ICE activists, anti-ICE activists saying this. We're not talking about blowhards on MS Now or This is CNN. I'm talking now about the governor of Minnesota, the mayor of their biggest city, Minneapolis, with the full support now of the Democratic Party. The Democrats were the party of secession in 1861. They were the party of nullification of federal law and federal power and federal authority in 1861. They were the party of insurrection and of slavery in 1861. History now is repeating itself in front of our eyes, except it's not in the South, it's in the North. And this is a Marxist revolution. Remember, Tim Walz is a huge admirer and supporter of Communist China. He is also funded and backed by Communist China. So this is not just a communist revolution that is now breaking out. Anarchists on the streets, Marxists and communists on the streets, radical anti-ICE agitators and political vigilantes on the streets. But this is now a fifth column movement that is clearly being funded and egged on by Beijing. So he starts off his speech incredibly saying, in fact, let me just play it again. Okay, because it's so unbelievable. It is such a monstrous lie that ICE is going door to door, ordering people to point out their neighbors of color. Who's the black guy in the street? Who's the brown person on the street? Who's the Asian on the street? Because we're going to hunt them all down. Roll cut 9, Mike.
My fellow Minnesotans, what's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
Okay. As I said in my opening monologue, that is a blatant, patent lie. And it's a dangerous lie because now you're spreading terror into the community. What you're doing now, this is incitement. What you're saying is now, stop them. These are Nazis. And they're hunting Americans down because of the color of their skin. Which is 1,000% false. But hold on, he's just getting warmed up. Listen now to Tampon Tim. Now, show me your papers. It's the Gestapo. Roll cut 9A, Mike.
They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government.
Now, I'm telling you right now, first of all, I can destroy every word, refute every word, because it's all lies. It's a pack of lies. But just let that go for a second. You're a Democrat. You're a supporter of his. You're a liberal. Okay? You're a moonbat. You're Bill in Sudbury, except you're Bill in Minneapolis. And you listen to this. You're going to take to the streets? How can you not take to the streets? If this is an organized campaign of brutality against the people of Minnesota, where people are just being indiscriminately, show me your papers. No papers, no identification. No, we're throwing you in a van. Next, we're disappearing you. Pregnant women dragged down the streets. People just going to grocery stores, bus stops, grabbing them. Innocent people, no warning, no due process. It's Hitler. It's the 1930s. Here it is. What schools have been targeted? That's a lie. What pregnant women have been dragged down the streets? That's a lie. When have they ever demanded to see anybody's papers? That's a lie. All right, parts of Minneapolis now. I mean, that's what the local media is saying. I'm just repeating what they're saying. And they have the pictures, they have the photos, they have the screens, they have the. It's the objective reality. Parts of Minneapolis now resemble a war zone. There's no other way to put it. So again, very quickly, last night there was another shooting involving an ICE agent, this time a Venezuelan illegal alien. He was stopped at a traffic stop and did not want to pull over. He tried to get away. A very dangerous car chase ensued in northern Minneapolis. People could have been killed. They were driving at crazy speeds. ICE pursued. He eventually smashed his car into a parked car. One ICE agent then pursued him on foot. He tried to get away on foot. As he grabbed him and brought him to the ground, the illegal alien, again being egged on by Jacob Fry and by Tim Walz to resist, began to assault and punch the ICE agent. The ICE agent was grappling with him on the ground, trying to put handcuffs and arrest him. Two anti-ICE activists, watching what was happening from an apartment nearby, ran onto the streets, one with a shovel, a snow shovel, the other one with a broomstick. And they began to mercilessly beat the ICE agent. They smashed him over the head. They smashed him on the face. They kept beating him because they're beating, in their minds, a Gestapo thug. The Venezuelan was able to wiggle out of the control or the grip of the ICE agent. He then grabbed the snow shovel and began to beat the ICE agent as well. The three of them began to kick, stomp, and beat him. They probably would have beaten him to death. Fearing for his life, he had no choice, pulled out his gun, fired several defensive shots. One of them hit the Venezuelan illegal in the leg. The three of them retreated back into the apartment. More ICE reinforcements arrived. They then stormed and they barricaded themselves inside the apartment. ICE agents then broke in. They stormed the apartment. And so the Venezuelan illegal has been arrested. He's now in a hospital, shot in the leg, non-life-threatening. He will survive. The other two that assaulted the ICE agent with the snow shovel and the broom have been arrested and are hopefully going to be convicted and sent to prison. The ICE agent is now in the hospital. His face has been badly damaged. He was beaten severely, but he will recover and he will be fine. It doesn't matter. What matters, I mean, of course it matters, but what happened afterwards, immediately Walz and Fry let it be known that ICE had shot someone, and they told protesters where to go. Hundreds and hundreds and then thousands descended and swarmed onto the scene where the shooting took place. They then began to launch, hurl fireworks and explosives at ICE agents. They pelted them with rocks, with ice bottles, with projectiles. They tried to burn them alive. They began to attack vehicles, attack ICE. ICE had to respond with rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper balls. It was absolute bedlam. Entire chunks of Minneapolis now have been shut down. Businesses are closed. Schools are closed. Residents are petrified to leave their homes. And this anarchy is now spreading. In the wake of this, Walz delivered a state address, 5 minutes on Minnesota television. He said that ICE is now waging a brutal occupation of Minnesota, his words. That ICE is now going door to door asking neighbors where people of color live so they can hunt them down. That they're dragging pregnant women on the streets. That they're throwing Americans into vans and they're being disappeared. That there are no more due process rights. That essentially now they have the Gestapo and the Nazis occupying the streets of Minneapolis, and he is now urging organized resistance to this rising Hitler and to this rising neo-Nazism that ICE represents. Listen now to Tim Walz saying Donald Trump is now looking to get as many Minnesotans killed as possible. He wants a bloodbath. Roll cut 9C, Mike.
But as bad as it's been, Donald Trump intends for it to get worse. This week, he went online to promise that, quote, the day of retribution and reckoning is coming. That's a direct threat against the people of this state, who dared to vote against him 3 times and who continue to stand up for freedom with courage and empathy and profound grace. All across Minnesota, people are stepping up to help their neighbors who are being unjustly and unlawfully targeted. They're distributing care packages and walking kids to school and raising their voices in peaceful protest even though doing so has made many of our fellow Minnesotans targets for violent retribution.
Okay, now he's just pouring gas on the fire. Okay, it's just canister after canister after canister. When Trump said there's going to be retribution, what he meant was for people like Waltz and Fry for doing everything in their power to obstruct, impede, and sabotage ICE operations to capture, arrest, and deport the most violent criminal illegal aliens in their community. Waltz is he's lying again that Trump wants retribution. And notice what he said. We voted against them 3 times. So in other words, no, he wants to kill us. Why? Because we dared to vote against a dictator. Now, listen to this. Waltz has a message for Trump. Roll cut 9D. Mike.
Folks, I know it's scary, and I know it's absurd that we all have to be defending law and order, justice, and humanity while also caring for our families and trying to do our jobs. So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough.
Okay, end the occupation. And so the protesters now, they're domestic terrorists. They're insurrectionists. What they're now saying on the streets as they throw fireworks, as they start to shoot now at ICE agents, as they start to throw rocks at them and hurl projectiles, is they're saying now this is an occupying army and that what you're seeing in Minnesota is an intifada. Their words, an uprising against the neo-Nazi brutal campaign to come in now and just massacre and murder people of color and Minnesotans for having dared to vote against Donald Trump. This is the poison, the bile, the lies, the incitement that Waltz and Fry are now just pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping, using their pulpits now to literally terrorize entire communities. Now, listen to Waltz. Remember that Renee Good was a member of something called ICE Watch, in which these are radical anti-ICE activists whose very purpose was to impede ICE, to obstruct ICE, to block ICE. Listen to him basically say, I want all of you to join this ICE Watch, these ICE Watch social justice warriors. All of you. Roll cut 10A, Mike.
Second, you are not powerless. You are not helpless, and you are certainly not alone. All across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger. Thousands upon thousands of our fellow Minnesotans are going to be relying on mutual aid in the days and weeks to come, and they need our support.
Now, so what he's calling for is join these ICE Watch groups, resist, and almost like let's create cells. We're going to ride this thing out. We're going to push ICE out. We're going to turn this now into days, if we need be weeks and weeks, of a resistance campaign against ICE. And eventually, we're just going to grind and wear ICE down. So he's calling now for organized resistance, organized insurrection. Now, there's more cuts. I'm not going to play any more. I'm going to play a little bit more later. I want to take your calls. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, many conservatives in Minnesota, and I can read them to you chapter and verse, but I don't want to waste your time, are saying that Waltz and Fry are fomenting what they're calling Civil War 2.0, that they believe this is their chance to annul, to repeal the election of President Trump. They refuse to accept his victory in November, and especially the centerpiece of his mandate, which was to secure the border, end open borders, stop the invasion of illegals, and begin to deport over 20 to 30 million illegal aliens out of the United States. They are committed now to sanctuary city policies. They are up to their eyeballs in the massive $9 billion fraud scandal that they are directly implicated in. Both Fry, Waltz, Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar. By the way, most of this is taking place in Ilhan Omar's district. And I'm going to play some cuts from her. She was on a pickup truck yesterday, basically saying that Trump and ICE are going to pay and pay dearly for what they're doing by trying to deport criminal illegals. So it's obvious what's going on. They are fomenting a rebellion in order to nullify the election and to break the back of President Trump. And look, let's be very clear. This makes January 6th look like a Sunday picnic. And I believe it is time for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. Frankly, I thought he should have done it last week, but let that go. And he's got to now nationalize or federalize the National Guard. And he's got to put Waltz and Fry in jail. Enough is enough. Agree, disagree. Chuck in Dighton, you're going to kick us off, Chuck. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Love you, buddy.
Thank you, Chuck.
I am just in disbelief. First of all, Minnesota basically just proven to me they are, if you count all the states, they are the lightest bulb on the Christmas tree, so to speak. And inciting violence. If they want to say Donald Trump did that on January 6th, it just makes me laugh. What they're doing and what the media, let's not forget the media. The media is to blame considerably what's going on. That's going to be dealt with also. But I think what Donald Trump should do, and like you said, he's got to move in, stop this, and it's a cancer. I mean, you got to cut it out and stop it. If you don't, I mean, we are heading, to some sort of a civil war, and I don't want to see that. But you got to stop the rhetoric with what's going on in Minnesota. And you know what? Let's look at their bank accounts and see what's happening on that side, because I wonder how they're getting rich.
Oh, Chuck, you hit the nail right on the head. I think there's no question that what's driving a lot of this, not all, but a lot of this, is because they're directly implicated. No, I mean, look, Fry's on the take, Waltz is on the take, Ilhan Omar is worth over $13 million. I mean, she's swimming in this fraud scandal. I mean, these are thieves and crooks, and they're going to go to jail. See, that's the real thing. Waltz couldn't run for re-election because he knows he would have been slaughtered in November. And he now knows that there's a potential investigation breathing down his neck about his direct involvement in billions and billions and billions of dollars being literally stolen. And this was done under his nose, with his consent, and most likely with him receiving kickbacks. He's become fabulously wealthy while in power. Keith Ellison, fabulously wealthy. Jacob Fry is now a wealthy man. Ilhan Omar is over $30 million and counting. So they were stealing, and they know they were stealing. And so what they need now is they need bodies. They want people dead. The more that die, the better. The more, I mean, I'm sorry to say it this way, but it's true. The more Renee Goods, the better. Because that's the only way they believe they can politically survive. Change the subject. That people will end up not talking about the Somali fraud scandal, the Somali pirates, but that they'll talk about Trump and make Trump the issue in the election in November in Minnesota. And so if that means burning the city down or people getting killed or people dying or, by the way, businesses are going up in smoke. You've got business owners saying we're dead in the water. I can't open up my business. You've got residents who are saying we can't get out of our house. It's a reign of terror out there. And the police, the local and state police are siding with these anti-ICE insurrectionists. And look, Chuck, I'm going to play the cut later because I've played a lot of cuts. But Jacob Fry, this is what he said yesterday. We no longer share the same values as Trump and MAGA. He basically said, look, we're becoming two countries. And we reject MAGA and we reject Trump, meaning we reject the election. That's 1860. Except replace Minnesota with, South Carolina with Minnesota. He's basically saying we become two nations. And we're just not going to accept the nation that won the election. So the rhetoric now is so militant and so strident and honestly so inflammatory. You don't have a right. I'm sorry. I don't care. Freedom of speech, no freedom of speech. You are screaming fire in a crowded theater. When the governor says that this is a brutal occupation, that atrocities, his words, atrocities are being committed, that they're going door to door, ISIS, and hunting down people of color and coming around and snatching people, citizens, U.S. citizens off the streets, and they're being disappeared, and pregnant women are being dragged and killed. It is so patently false, but it's also so explosive. You are telling people, take it to the streets. You are telling people, get violent. Organize a violent resistance against this occupying army. That's of course what you're saying. So, look, there are things on the air I can't say. If it's not true, I can't say it. Especially if it's going to lead to violence. Why is it any different for a governor or a mayor? I'm not talking about differences of opinion or differences of interpretation or whatever. I'm sorry. Look, I'm sorry. ICE is not going door to door. A. B. They're not going door to door hunting down people of color. That's a lie. They're not arresting. They haven't arrested any U.S. citizens because they thought they were illegal aliens. They've arrested protesters for attacking them, assaulting them, impeding them, obstructing them. Yes. But they don't just pick somebody off the street and say, we think you're an illegal. You've got them now saying they're there shooting Minnesotans for the sake of shooting Minnesotans. That they're just walking around saying, boom, okay, this one, boom, okay, this one, boom. That's not happening. You can't say that as a public figure. You have a public moral responsibility. And you have these idiot protesters, many of them believe them. Because think about it from their point of view. That's their mayor. They voted for this guy. That's their governor. They voted for this guy. So they don't listen to this show. They don't listen to other, media outlets. This idiot is telling them they're hunting you down. They're shooting you like dogs in the streets. And they're saying, okay, well, now it's time to throw Molotov cocktails. It's time to hurl explosives and burn them alive. I played the cut yesterday. There's many more now coming out saying we need to kill ICE. ICE is now complaining, saying we're getting shot at and they're going to start to assassinate us. It's inevitable now. And the local police is doing nothing. And this is the tragedy, Chuck, and I promise I'll come back to you. All this need not happen. If the local police would simply do this, you know what? X, who is, I got a detainer. He's convicted, and this is true, of, there's many cases like this, of multiple murders. Okay? Say from Laos, or from Somalia, or from El Salvador, or from Mexico. That's who they're arresting. So this guy with 3 murders, convicted. You've been looking for him. We got him. Prison. We're going to hold him for you. Come and get him. This child rapist wanted for sodomy of a boy and sodomy of a girl. We've got him. We're not going to release him back into the community. We're going to hold him at the detention center. Come and get him. Then ICE wouldn't be going around neighborhood to neighborhood. ICE would be going into these jails and detention centers, grabbing them, putting them on a plane, deporting them, or whatever, putting them in a federal prison or whatever. The reason why ICE is even out on the streets is because Jacob Fry and Tim Walz have said we are sanctuary jurisdictions. We're not going to cooperate with ICE. We don't care how many detainers you have. We don't care how dangerous these illegal aliens are. We don't care if they've been convicted for mass murder, for drug trafficking, for raping, literally raping and sodomizing children. We're going to let them out. Well, ICE has to get them. So all of this need not happen. But this is the problem. What happens to the Democratic Party if Trump succeeds in his mass deportations? Here, just take Minnesota. You deport all of these illegal alien Somalis. The Democrats can't win an election. Fry would never be governor. Fry would never be mayor. Waltz would never be governor. Ilhan Omar would not be a member of Congress. Keith Ellison would not be the state attorney general. The power of the Democrats relies upon illegal aliens because they vote. They vote, and they vote in massive numbers. And they give them welfare, fraud, in order to bribe them to keep them voting. Well, if Trump deports them, then that destroys the Democrats' power base. That's why they cannot let him succeed. He must be stopped. That's why they're fighting him in Chicago. They're fighting him in Boston. They're fighting him in New York. They're fighting him in Portland. They're fighting him in LA. They're fighting him, obviously, in Minneapolis. They're in every blue state, every blue jurisdiction. You take away their voting base, illegal aliens, they're finished. So for the sake of political power, like in the Old South, like the Confederacy, slavery was their power. You challenge their power, they will burn this country down. They're doing it again. And I think what Trump doesn't quite understand is I don't think 2,000 to 3,000 ICE agents is enough. I mean, they're taking a beating now out there. Now, yes, they're firing tear gas, rubber bullets, canisters. They're doing everything they can, pepper balls. But the problem now is they can't focus on these targeted operations because they're just too busy defending themselves, which means the illegal aliens are not being captured and detained or deported. And so what their strategy now, and this is why Walt said, hunker down. This is going to go on for days and weeks, and we're going to help each other, and we're going to support each other, and I want you to join ICE Watch. We're just going to wait ICE out until they just get exhausted and leave, and our illegal stay. So that, in other words, they want to nullify the election. So that's why I've been saying to President Trump now for a long time, you've got to focus on matters here at home. I love you, brother. I do. But you've got a Marxist revolution and a Marxist rebellion right here in the United States, and they're going for your throat. Chuck, final word to you.
Well, you know what, Jeff? I think what he should do is basically just drop the hammer right now, put Minnesota in line, make an example of the country, and let's end all this mayhem that's going on.
I'm with you. Chuck, I think it's way past time. Eddie in Charlestown, thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eddie.
One thing that we're forgetting here is the founding fathers set up this country in three things here: the federal government, the state government, and the city government, a chain of command. And what this Governor Walsh says, I have a new nickname for him, Teflon Tim, because he makes John Gotti and the Mafia look like a bunch of Boy Scouts. Okay? What they're doing is the old-fashioned point your finger to the President of the United States, but when you point your finger at someone, what comes back at you? 3 more fingers come back at you. So what they're doing is it's a deflection. Like I said the last time I called, it's to hide all the money that they stole. They don't care about the body. They don't care about how many people are going to get hurt or how many people are going to get killed. All they care about is getting as much money so they can live their lives and be on some island when this is all over. They have to go to jail. It's amazing how they can take a former president and arrest him and indict him on BS charges, but they can't do anything with a governor, a mayor, and a congresswoman. Give me a break. What's going on? Pam Bondi, I hope you're listening, because do your job. What do you have to hide? Is there something that they have on her? I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Well, Eddie, the reason why she won't move is if she does, she's going to be despised and loathed and hated by the entire media, by the Democratic Party, by the establishment, by even many rhino Republicans. And Pam Bondi wants to be liked. I mean, there are just people like that. That's her personality. She wants to be liked. She wants to be the most popular person at the party. She thought that being Attorney General would be more of a glamour position, a high-profile position, that she could then launch herself into a really good TV gig, maybe a best-selling book or memoir, and that she could then, do the rounds and sell her book on CNN and NBC and CBS, and I could go on and on. Obviously, get a position on Fox News. Well, you don't get a position on Fox News if you arrest a sitting governor or a sitting mayor, and the left goes absolutely berserk. Then you become toxic, and she doesn't want to become toxic because she's not interested in that. That's not her thing. So that's the problem. The problem now is that Trump needs an attorney general that is willing to drop the hammer. And look, if you want, I can read to you the deputy, Pam Bondi's deputy, number 2, the deputy attorney general, Todd Blanche, what he said. I'll sum it up for you, but I can read it for you word for word. He said to Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, he openly said this: you're inciting riots, you're inciting violence, you're inciting terrorism. He actually even said that. But then he says, and I'm watching you. That's what he said. I'm watching you. And on X. And he puts watching in caps. And I'm like, this is your big threat? You're watching Tim Walz? You're watching Jacob Fry after everything you're accusing them of? I mean, you read this, you're like, well, you should arrest them. Okay, well, you should arrest them. Well, okay, you should arrest them. I mean, are they inciting riots? Yes, arrest them. Are they inciting an insurrection? Yeah, arrest them. Are they aiding and abetting criminal behavior? Yeah, arrest them. No. Instead, he says, I'm watching you. Well, watching is not enough. Look, Tim Walz was trained by the CCP. Tim Walz may be stupid. He's not the brightest light bulb. There's no question. But he's a hardcore Maoist activist. He's a Maoist street fighter. And look, no one had a more brutal lockdown than Tim Walz when he was running Minnesota during COVID. And look at him now. Say what you want about the guy. Every name, look, even Mamdani is not insulting Trump and going after Trump the way Tim Walz is. I mean, he's going after Trump with everything he's got. Him and his wingman, Jacob Fry, his henchman, the two of them. So no one has gone. Even Pritzker has not gone as far. Even Newsom has not gone as far as these two. So say what you want about these guys. They're not playing around. And the reason why they're not playing around is because they're bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. And the Chi-Coms don't play around. So they need to break Trump. Trump is killing China on trade, on the military, on making deals all over the world, on blocking them and kicking them out of the Western Hemisphere. Now he wants to kick them out of the Arctic. And they've got to stop Trump. Well, how do you stop them? Start a freaking rebellion and a possible civil war right in the middle of the country. And that's why, look, Waltz is not even saying we're going to back up. Waltz is saying hunker down a la Mao Zedong. Remember, he's a big admirer of Mao. No. Mao says when your enemy hits you, you hit him back 10 times. And you go to the woods, you go to the forests, you wage guerrilla war. In other words, time is on your side. That's the thing about Mao. Mao said always, time, wear him down. Time, wear him down. This is political guerrilla war. Waltz is saying, I can play you the cuts. No, wait him out. We're going to hunker down. We're going to help each other. We're going to keep protesting. And if this goes on for weeks, if this goes on for months, I don't care. Because in the end, we're going to win this struggle. So what Trump has to realize is he's got to go in hard and he's got to go in heavy. Because if he doesn't, look, what's going to happen? It's inevitable. Portland and Oregon are going to be next. Chicago's going to be next. LA and California are going to be next. Eventually it's going to be Boston and Massachusetts. They're going to look at this and they're saying, hey, they're actually blocking ICE. ICE can't do their job because it's street battle after street battle, street protest after street protest, rocks being thrown, explosive devices being thrown, ICE agents now being beaten and assaulted. By the way, have you seen what they're doing to ICE's vehicles? I mean, they're destroying ICE's vehicles. Their agents are being rammed. They're trying to run them over. Now they're getting beaten up with snow shovels and broomsticks. Other states are going to follow. It's like the Confederacy. The rebellion spreads. Nip it in the bud, or else you got a big problem on your hand. This could be the mother lode, Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Okay, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. And honestly, it's one of the most important poll questions we've ever done in the history of this show. Are Governor Waltz, Tampon Tim, and the boy wonder, Mayor Jacob Fry, are they inciting an insurrection in Minnesota? Are Tim Waltz, the governor, and Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, are they inciting an insurrection in Minnesota? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And yes, I was active on X again last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN is in national ER. Mr. X in North Adams. Thanks for holding, Mr. X, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you. Hi. Been wanting to talk to you for quite a while. What I'm seeing, like a lot of us, is just utterly unbelievable. But like I think all of us, we need to face this reality. And to one of your points, yes, I hope Mr. President or some of his representatives are listening right now. Please institute the Insurrection Act. It's long past. We need to, Mr. President Trump used to say, when he gets hit, he hits back harder. That's what we actually need. The ICE agents need it. I've been watching online what they've been going through, and it's utterly horrible. They're trying to do their job, and it's only going to get worse. The president needs to respond really today. And I saw online last night, ICE agents were out at a restaurant trying to have a meal, and they were harassed out of there. So it's almost close to, or you could say, Minnesota is really already, or parts of it, in their so-called leadership, not even part of the United States. They don't sound like, patriotic at all. They sound like they're, talking for the Communist Party. So the scams going on, there's scams everywhere in Minnesota and elsewhere, and possibly right here in Massachusetts. And so I am respectfully requesting the president get moving on this, because like a cancer, it's only going to get worse, and it's going to get worse fast. And as you pointed out, it's going to skip to other states. And so I'm very concerned, like everybody, and I hope we can start to see things start to turn in a more positive way. I have a suggestion. In watching these agents try to control these people, I wish they would employ stun guns, because they're fighting like crazy to control these people. They pull their arms in, and you can't get the cuffs on them. Another thing is there's laws on the books about how far you have to stand back at an abortion clinic. I thought long ago, and maybe it's too late, but they keep telling these people to get back. That's really problematic. And as people know, and they don't have the support of the governor in Minnesota, the mayor in Minnesota, and the police. You look at red states where they do have that support, none of this is going on.
Exactly. You're dead on. I couldn't have said it better myself. And look, Mr. X, all I can do is, reinforce and add to what you're saying. It is a crime. I mean, I know you know this, but this is what I find shocking. It is a felony. It's not just a federal crime. It's a felony to impede or block or obstruct, not just ICE, any federal law enforcement operation. It's a federal crime. So what I don't understand is, why aren't you arresting people? I don't mean 5 here, 6 here, 3 here. They only arrest the ones that punch them in the face, throw rocks at them, throw bottles at them, try to burn them alive with these explosives, or like last night with the shovel, pounding the guy's face in with a broomstick and a shovel. So unless they're actually physically assaulted, or they try to burn them alive, or give them a concussion, or they don't arrest anybody. No, you block or impede an ICE operation. That is a felony. It is a federal crime. By the way, it's also a crime in Minnesota. Everybody's forgetting that. I mean, it's technically on the books. They're not enforcing it, but it's both a federal and a state crime. There should be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of arrests, and throw the book at them. Like, come on. I understand. ICE doesn't want to raise tensions. I get it. I've got people on the ground in Minneapolis who are telling me, Jeff, ICE is really worried you're going to see dead bodies. You're going to see dead ICE agents. You're going to see dead protesters. And if that happens, it is a powder keg. It is going to blow. So they're doing everything they can to try to tamper down the tension. But you got to take the gloves off. Okay, I just want to reinforce what Mr. X said. You have now commentators in Minneapolis, conservatives, many independents as well. These are their words that they're using. Minnesota increasingly looks and acts and feels like a breakaway state. As I mentioned earlier, what Mayor Jacob Fry and Tampon Tim Walz are doing is they are trying now to foment a Civil War 2.0. And that they're nullifiers, they're modern day nullifiers, they're modern day insurrectionists, like in the southern states in the 1850s and going into 1860 and eventually with the Civil War in 1861. That they no longer recognize, when it comes to immigration, federal authority, federal jurisdiction, federal sovereignty, and this is now a full-blown rebellion. And the language that they're using and the terms that they're using are straight from the Confederacy playbook. It is a neo-Confederacy that is now beginning to emerge. And at the heart of the Confederacy were lies, a pack of lies about slavery, about the nature of our union, about the nature of federal law, about federalism, about our country. And that's what you're seeing now being replayed right now in Minnesota. And just to show you the level of the lies, I talked about Tim Walz and how he's lying and smearing and demonizing ICE with the most fantastical hysteria you could possibly imagine. Forget that. Just for a second. Just as I like to say, let that go. Take that off the table. What has Fry and Walz and the Democrats and the media been saying now for an entire week? That the ICE agent that was involved in the fatal shooting of Renee Good, Jonathan Ross, that the car never hit him. That the vehicle, when she was told to get out of her car repeatedly, and then told she was under arrest, and then she resisted arrest and defied a lawful command, and then she hit the accelerator and went straight for the agent. And that's when obviously the agent was hit. He jumped out of the way. He shot her in self-defense. What they've been saying now for an entire week is that the vehicle never touched him. Or as Jacob Fry said famously, it's like being hit by your fridge door. In other words, if it did hit him, it barely touched him. It nicked him. And so hence, this was an execution. This was a murder. Well, now there's a problem because another lie has been exposed. Yesterday, CBS News, as I've been reporting now for days, but CBS News officially confirmed it. Hospital records, because Jonathan Ross was taken to the hospital. There are official hospital records. He was treated by doctors. Their medical reports, hospital records now conclusively show that Jonathan Ross, the agent involved in the shooting of Renee Good, was not just rammed and hit by the car, but in fact he suffered injuries, substantial injuries, internal bleeding of the torso. He suffered internal bleeding in the torso. So he was clearly hit. The vehicle clearly hit him. And the vehicle clearly obviously did enough damage to cause internal bleeding, for God's sake. So that's another lie that's now gone up in smoke. By the way, never mind the obvious fact that one of the bullets is right in the windshield. 3 shots were fired, one of them right through the windshield. Well, if he wasn't right in front of the vehicle, how the hell could he have gotten a bullet through the windshield? That's physics. So, but, let that go. The fact of the matter is, not only was he hit, not only was he rammed, and not only obviously was she going to run him over, whether she wanted to or not is irrelevant. She was going to run him over. The fact of the matter is, he was hospitalized and he suffered internal bleeding of the torso. Now, this has been confirmed by the Minnesota Star Tribune, which is, by the way, a very liberal newspaper. And they said, well, no, we looked, I'm sorry, the hospital records are the hospital records. On what? The doctors are lying now? The nurses are lying? What, they're falsifying hospital reports now? The local media, it's all over Minnesota. No, he has suffered internal damage. Yeah, internal bleeding in the torso. So, again, it's lie and another lie and another lie and another lie. And you have to ask yourself, for what? Why? In the end, why? Why lie about ICE? You've got people being interviewed, and they're not actors. I mean, I believe them. I feel very sorry for them, but I truly believe them. They're being interviewed. You got to see them. There's a young woman, maybe 25 years old, a woman of color, and her eyes are like popping out of her skull. And she's like, I'm so scared of federal law enforcement. ICE is going to come after me. He's going to shoot. They're going to shoot me. And she's an American citizen. But I mean, she's yelling, screaming, she's shaking, she's petrified. And she says, that's why I'm protesting on the street, because, my God, they're going to, like, she's convinced they're going to come into her home and either kidnap and abduct her and send her to El Salvador, okay? Or they're just going to shoot her right in the head. Now, where is she getting these ideas from? It's coming in directly from Waltz, from Tampon Tim, and from Jacob Fry, and from the lying corporate media, and from the Democrats. And they're doing it on purpose. Petrify them, terrorize them, traumatize them, because this will drive them to the streets. They wanted an insurrection. They wanted riots. They wanted to do everything possible to block and undermine and abolish ICE. They just needed a body. They needed a martyr, like with George Floyd. And they got it with Renee Good. And now it's going to go on and on and on until the president decides to finally end it. Agree, disagree. JD on the North Shore. Thanks for holding, JD, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good. How are you, JD?
Good, Jeff. I'd like to discuss the Insurrection Act, if I may. But
yes.
Before that, I have a unique story that's very similar to Officer Ross, the federal ICE agent. I'm approximately the same age as you, Jeff. I worked 29 years in public safety, 8.5 in law enforcement, and the rest as a firefighter. When I was 28 years old, I was intentionally struck and hit by a motor vehicle during a narcotics transaction that kind of went bad. Up over the hood of the car, into the windshield, pancaked my torso off the windshield of the car, and subsequently had post-traumatic arthritis. Had to have my hip replaced 3 times, operated on another 2 times. Left with long-lasting orthopedic pain injuries that I've had for about 15 years. So all these armchair quarterbacks who are, saying, why did the officer do this, do that? It's a split-second decision that he has to make. His life was in danger, and he did the exact thing that he was trained to do. So that being said, I'd like to get to my main point. Why
JD, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. I just want to ask you, because you really know from firsthand experience. I've said this, Kristi Noem, to her credit, has said it. What Renee Good and her wife, because I blame the wife as well, Renee and Rebecca Good did, is they weaponized a vehicle. It's a 2-ton SUV. Okay? It's not a Nerf football. It's a 2-ton SUV. That thing hits you at any speed, never mind when it's accelerating. And as you pointed out, I don't care if it hits you in your chest, in your midsection, or in, like you were talking about, in the hip. It can do a tremendous amount of damage. JD, am I wrong?
No, you're 100% correct, Jeff.
I mean, right. I mean, a vehicle is a weapon. I know it's not a gun, but a vehicle can be just as deadly as a gun. And this is what I find incredible, how they're just all acting like, well, what's the big deal? She tried to run him over. Big deal. She tried to ram him. Big deal. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's like a missile. JD, I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. Let's go right back to JD on the North Shore. JD, you said you've got to say your piece about the Insurrection Act. Please, the floor is yours. Go.
Thanks for holding me over on the break, Jeff. I appreciate it. So what Trump needs to do is, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the Trump administration lose at the Supreme Court in regards to federalizing and deploying the National Guard to certain states?
Yes.
Okay, so Tim Waltz knows this as the governor of Minnesota. So what he needs to do is, in order to get U.S. military troops on U.S. soil, is if he invokes the Insurrection Act, it'll suspend posse comitatus and enact martial law right away. And that's what he needs to do to quell this insurrection. Waltz knows this. They know what happened at the Supreme Court. So I think he's taunting Trump into doing this. And I think Trump should do it to restore order. And it's just disgusting what's happening in Minnesota. And also that Ilhan Omar, not only did she commit immigration fraud by marrying her brother, do you know that that's not her real last name, Jeff? Her real last name, forgive me, I don't know what it is, but if you look into it, it was a different Muslim name. It was her father's name, and she had to change it because he's on a terror watch list connected to the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's right. He's a war criminal. He's a war criminal. He committed massive atrocities as part of the Marxist regime in Somalia, and he was wanted as a war criminal. And so the only way she could apply for refugee status and get, admitted was to change her last name. You're completely right. So again, she committed immigration fraud. She committed bigamy. There's no question. She committed marriage fraud. This woman should have her citizenship stripped, and she should be deported back to Somalia ASAP. JD, I want to go back to the Insurrection Act, if you don't mind, just for a second. And I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. I think Trump needs to invoke it. I would support him all the way. But let me just play devil's advocate for a second, because I am getting some text messages, some emails, from Trump supporters. These are big show, supporters of the show and big MAGA supporters. But they're saying, Jeff, respectfully, I disagree. And the argument they're making, and I want to get your take, is that if Trump goes nuclear, i.e. invokes the Insurrection Act, that's going to play right into the left's hands, into the media, into the Democrat narrative, into Waltz's narrative, that Trump is a dictator. Now he's declaring martial law. This is what they're going to argue. Now he's suspending, basic due process and posse comitatus. And so this is now, in other words, he is everything we said. He's an authoritarian strongman who's now declared martial law. And that this is only going to feed into this narrative, and it's going to lead to more people going to the streets. It's going to lead to more bloodshed, more riots. It's going to spread to other cities and other states. In other words, this could blow up in our face if Trump goes with the Insurrection Act. What say you?
It's a double-edged sword, I agree. However, we are a nation of laws, rules, and norms. And if law breaks down, law and order, and they're obviously flagrantly disregarding, this all goes back to all these, we have laws, immigration laws, and they're upset that we're enforcing them. And you can't pick and choose which laws you want to abide by, because then society breaks down. It is a double-edged sword. They should go in, they're going to arrest Waltz, and now he becomes a martyr for the left. And who knows, maybe he's the next presidential candidate. But you got to nip this in the bud. You can't have lawlessness and chaos on American streets, because it'll spread.
Oh, you're dead on. You nailed it. That would exactly be my counter argument. And look, it's not, how do I say this? It's not, people are going 65 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. We're not talking that. We're talking our borders. We're talking immigration. I don't know what's more important than that, our sovereignty. So, Jacob Fry yesterday literally said, not once, he said it 3 times, that he doesn't want ICE to arrest anyone in Minneapolis. Anyone. That every illegal is wanted in Minneapolis to stay. That includes, I kid you not, here, just to give you, the last 36 hours, I said they have captured, just in Minneapolis alone, they have captured and detained, arrested 10 convicted murderers, illegal aliens, 10 convicted murderers, 3 convicted rapists, all 13 illegals. Okay, so 13 in all, 10 murderers, 3 rapists. And the mayor, the moonbat mayor of Minneapolis, that whack job, says, no, we don't want you to arrest them. We don't want you to touch them. We side with them. So if they're allowed to get away with this, we don't have a country. I can't. And by the way, so are the people of Minneapolis, like, you want these rapists to go to your parks? You want them walking on your streets? You want them going to the same restaurants you go to, or grocery stores, or, you know, like, you want them in your community? So you want murderers and rapists and drug dealers? Is that what they're trying to tell me? First of all, it's not true. Most Minnesotans are against what Waltz and Fry are doing. But I'm just, you know, we're not talking about speeding laws or small potatoes. I'm not dismissing speeding laws. I'm just saying, you know, people do tend to break speeding laws, right? But it's not the end of the world. We're talking about our country, our identity, who we are, who we let in, who we don't let in. You know, so what? We can just allow terrorists to come in? That's okay? Murderers, sex traffickers, child rapists? That's okay? And our laws on the books mean nothing? And they're allowed to just lay waste to people in the United States? Murder all the Joycelyn Nungares and Laken Rileys they want with impunity? These people are sick. JD, am I wrong?
You touched on terrorists. Jeff, how many millions of undocumented, unvetted illegals came into the country in the last 5 years? I know Trump closed the border down, but there's got to be sleeper cells in this country from nations that want to harm us.
It's suicide. If we don't enforce our immigration laws, and if we don't deport these illegals, we are committing suicide. And that's the issue now. And look, we almost committed suicide in 1861, that they wanted to destroy this country and break it up over slavery. And now they want to break up and destroy this country again over illegal aliens. You can't make it up. History repeats itself. And that's why, look, Lincoln came down hard. Trump needs to come down hard. There's no other way. JD, excellent call. Excellent call. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Hey, Jeff, I think we just need to very quickly reset the table here. In 2024, we prosecuted a presidential election peacefully, and we won. And Trump won. Trump won the Electoral College. He won all 7 swing states. He won the popular vote. And he won it on immigration enforcement. That is number one. Number two, the Constitution is very clear that immigration enforcement is a prerogative of the federal government. And the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution makes it abundantly clear that the federal government is supreme in the few matters that are delegated to the federal government in the Constitution. And therefore, neither Governor Walz nor Mayor Frey get to pick and choose. They don't get a say in immigration enforcement, and they don't get to dictate anything to ICE in ICE's lawful conduct of immigration enforcement. That there is number one. Number two, the unfortunate reality, the Minneapolis police are under the jurisdiction of Mayor Frey. The Minnesota State Police are under the jurisdiction of Governor Walz. I'm guessing there's many law enforcement professionals in both agencies that want to be on the streets doing their job and ending this madness. Frey and Walz won't let them. They're standing in the way. So President Trump does definitely need to invoke the Insurrection Act, and he needs to surge both military and federal authority into Minnesota and Minneapolis to end this. to end this in the proper way. And he also needs to stay on track with ending federal funds for all sanctuary cities and states. And there's been a very good debate that, this will temporarily hurt people, just citizens that need that help. And as that debate was going on, and that is the unfortunate reality, Jeff, but over and over in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, but we're going to just have to break some eggs here to make an omelet. There's no other way. So President Trump needs to move forward aggressively with both tracks. And if a Judge Boasberg attempts to get in the way, this needs to be the administration's exact words. No control. You have no controlling legal authority, but out.
Oh, Andy, on every point, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Andy, let me ask you this. If protests erupted last night, I mean, the city it's going to blow. And this is coming from ICE. This is coming from Kristi Noem. I mean, they're like, you don't understand. It was ugly last night. First of all, there were thousands on the streets, even though it was cold. And they're armed with projectiles, with rocks, some of them now with knives. Gunshots are being fired. Explosives are being hurled. They're trying to burn ICE agents alive. Vehicles are being torched and destroyed. It's downtown Minneapolis it's a war zone. It's completely shut down. As I said, the businesses, the schools, everything is shut down. And it's only going to get worse now. And that's over the second shooting, this time of a Venezuelan illegal, but was shot in the leg. In other words, it was non-lethal. If they're going to erupt and explode over shooting someone in the leg who tried to run over an ICE agent and then resisted, smashed his car in a parked car after a car chase, and then when the officer tried to arrest them on a foot chase, then started to punch the officer, kick the officer, and then two other witnesses, activists who were watching this, rush out with a snow shovel and a broomstick, and they start beating the ICE agent. And then the Venezuelan illegal gets out from underneath the ICE agent and grabs the snow shovel and starts smashing the officer in the head and the face with it. And the three of them are just beating and stomping on the officer to the point that he says, I'm going to die. Either they're going to take my gun and shoot me, or they're going to beat me to death. And so defensively, he grabs his weapon and shoots and hits the Venezuelan illegal in the leg. Now, if that's not a lawful, defensive, justified shooting, honest to God, Andy, I don't know what is. Basically, it's, okay, come and kill me. I guess that's what Waltz and Fry want. So if they're going to erupt over that, honestly, Andy, God forbid if they end up shooting another, there's another ICE-involved shooting, but it's a fatal shooting, like what happened with Renee Good. What are they going to do? Really? Is this going to be like Gaza? Really? Are they going to start planting bombs and put snipers on the roof and just start, assassinating and massacring ICE agents? I'm being serious. In other words, if they're erupting over a shooting in the leg, and it's the most lawful shooting you can possibly have, what are they going to do if ICE ends up, God forbid, shooting somebody and killing them? I mean, how bad is it going to get in Minneapolis? That's my question. What say you, Andy?
One of the things I keep circling back to, Jeff, is they're desperate to implement the Podesta plan because it's literally the only play they have left. And I've seen a lot of the clips of these protesters on the ground, and that plan, that is not going according to plan because not enough of the country is buying their horse manure that would be necessary for that to really get up off the ground and I just remember one video clip I saw of an old lady protesting, and and she was saying, to the ICE agents, come on, shoot me, please kill me. And it seems to be frustration on these protesters' parts that they've not gotten the reaction out of the rest of us that they've wanted, because our side, for the most part, has stayed incredibly peaceful. So, just armed with that knowledge, we just need to keep urging the president to move forward with the Insurrection Act. And the answer, Jeff, is going to be to surge enough force into Minneapolis and Minnesota to shut this all down.
Just overwhelm them. No, you're dead on. Andy, you're dead on as usual. Andy, again, thank you so much for that call. Really good call. Look, it was an ambush. That ICE agent yesterday was ambushed. He wasn't just ambushed by the Venezuelan illegal that he was pursuing, who again had resisted arrest and defied a lawful command. And it was a car chase, and then afterwards it was a foot chase. But he was ambushed by two of these crazy anti-ICE activists, and it wasn't even planned. They see the ICE guy, wrestling with this illegal on the ground, and they go, ha, ICE, Gestapo. And so they charge at him from their apartment, one carrying a broom handle, the other one carrying a shovel. Honestly, what if there wasn't a shovel, it was a bat, or God forbid, a gun, or a knife? That ICE agent is dead. End of story. So if they're starting now to ambush ICE agents, it's getting out of control. John in Lowell, thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
So many things, so stick with me. Number one, if there are any of these libtards listening out there, if your governor believes in this cause so much, why is he not out in the streets leading the troops? Because when you believe in something, Jeff, that's what a leader does. Like you go out, you open up the rallies, you're there. You're standing for what you believe in. Number two, we're going to go down the rabbit hole for a second, and I have a couple more points. Who are the number one recipients of the vaccine, Jeff?
What do you mean by the number one recipient?
Liberal women.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, Mariah brought it up the other day. So, I've noticed an uptick in the insanity since the vaccine. If you think about it and look back, you can probably put a timeline on it too. Number three, Jeff, we have to be very, very careful here. Here's the big picture. Foment this inside the country. Release sleeper cells. Attack from outside. A nation divided cannot stand, Jeff. Cannot. This is what these people don't see. They think they're in this great cause and they're doing this and that. They're going to end up living under the jackboot with us. And they're not going to have any rights at all.
John, how do you see this playing out? What do you think is the end game?
I see it playing out exactly as I just said. Unfortunately. And Jeff, I have to wonder, remember Bolton? Were we not all fooled by Bolton?
Oh, yeah, he fooled everybody. There's no question.
Jeff, if Trump doesn't shut this down and shut it down quick, I'm sorry, but my gut tells me, and my gut's generally right, part of it too. Call me crazy, call me whatever you want, but this should have been stopped. What do you do with a petulant child? Do you let them tear the house apart? Or the second they have their temper tantrum, you rein them in? Something's going on, Jeff, and I don't like it. And this is why you look to no man to save you, Jeff. You look to the Lord and Savior, because he's the only one that's going to save you.
No truer words were ever spoken. John, God bless you, my friend. And please don't be a stranger, okay? Call again. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me just quickly reset, and I want to continue to take your calls. 617-266-6868. Minneapolis last night, just exploded. Street battles, neighborhood to neighborhood, block to block, tear gas, explosives, you name it, everything was used. Projectiles, rocks were thrown, ice bottles at ICE. Their vehicles were, many of them destroyed and vandalized, all because of an ICE-involved shooting of a Venezuelan illegal alien who resisted arrest. And then he and two others began to grab a shovel and a broomstick. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a text I got from a law enforcement friend of mine, or actually was former law enforcement, who's got superb contacts in the law enforcement community, not just here in New England, but across the entire country. Here is what he texted me. Jeff, now, so listen now to this. Now the so-called peaceful protesters are breaking into law enforcement vehicles and stealing rifles and ammunition. This madness is out of control, and President Trump needs to step in today to end this mess. And on another note, it only takes 2 days at best to get a federal arrest warrant. Law enforcement officials have more than enough evidence, i.e. video clips of Tampon Tim and Little Jacob, and inciting an insurrection. What are they looking for? That's a great question. What are they waiting for? Okay, you need to hear this, okay? I promised earlier, over an hour, that I'd play the couple more clips. So, Waltz addressed the state last night. It was one of the most disgusting, vile, insurrectionist, treasonous speeches ever in the history of the United States. I'm choosing my words very carefully. So, he said that this was a brutal occupation by ICE and Trump, that ICE, he was lying, saying that ICE was going door to door, looking to hunt down people of color, that ICE was going around shooting people willy-nilly, abducting citizens off the streets, dragging pregnant women, taking people, violating people's civil liberties and civil rights, asking people for their papers, U.S. citizens being arrested for immigration crimes en masse, and that Trump wants to massacre Minnesotans. That the Gestapo and the Nazis were now running ICE and were now occupying, was an invasion, as he put it, have invaded and occupied Minnesota and Minneapolis. He then said this about the need to organize. In fact, he called for organized resistance. He called for people to join this ICE watch so they could obstruct ICE at every turn. And then he wants them to start filming, videotaping with their phones, what he says are, quote, the atrocities of ICE. Roll cut 10B, Mike.
Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
So now what they're claiming and what they're threatening is that they're going to go after every single ICE agent that was involved in these targeted operations. And notice now, atrocities, massacres are being committed. That's the lie, the incitement that he's now spreading. Okay, the trauma, the terror. Okay, now listen to this, because you have to hear it. He then all but calls for a holy war, a political jihad against ICE and against Trump. Roll cut 10C, Mike.
The third thing I want to say to you tonight is we will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court. We will reclaim our communities from Donald Trump. We will reestablish a sense of safety for our neighbors. And we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma. We will find a way to move forward, and we'll do it together. And we'll not be alone. Every day we are working with business leaders, faith leaders, legal experts, and elected officials from across this country. They've all seen what Donald Trump is trying to do to our state, and they know their states could be next.
Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. So listen now where he says we take care of our neighbors. This is who we are. We look out for those in the shadows of life, meaning the illegals, all the illegals. We're going to go to the streets to protect the illegals. Roll cut, because this is who we are as Minnesotans. Roll cut 10D, Mike.
And that brings me to the fourth thing I want to say tonight, Minnesota. How incredibly proud I am of the way that you've risen to meet this unbearable moment. But I'm not at all surprised, because this is who we are. Minnesotans believe in the rule of law, and Minnesotans believe in the dignity of all people. We're a place where there's room for everybody, no matter who you are or who you love or where you came from. A place where we feed our kids, we take care of our neighbors, and we look out for those in the shadows of life. We're an island of decency in a country being driven towards cruelty. We will remain an island of decency.
So what he's saying is, look, we're Marxist Minnesotans. We will not abide by federal immigration law, ever. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so when Tampon Tim finished his address to Minnesota, to Minnesota, to all Minnesotans, basically calling for them to take it to the streets, to organize systematic resistance to ICE, decrying this as a brutal occupation and an invasion, saying now that essentially resistance is the only option. Jacob Frey had a press conference, and he just took it now to its logical culmination. We're basically now 1861 2.0. Listen now to Jacob Frey saying we are being invaded, and because we're being invaded, we are now essentially two countries, two nations. ICE represents fascist Nazi America, and we, Marxist Minnesotans, those protesters and activists on the streets, the insurrectionists, we represent all that's good, decent, and holy in the name of illegals. Roll cut 12, Mike.
Everybody who's out there, even people who aren't living in Minneapolis right now, maybe you just put your kids to bed. Maybe you're cleaning up the dishes. I'm sure you love your family. There's no doubt in my mind that you love your town. Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare. This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE.
So there you go. There you go. Your town is invaded. They invade your schools. They shut down your cafe. They shut down your business. You don't know what to do. The logic here is inexorable. Let's secede, but they're going to get to that. but more importantly, take it to the streets. Now, what businesses have ICE closed? What cafes have they closed? It was Waltz that ordered the schools to be closed in Minneapolis. It wasn't ICE. It wasn't Trump. It was Fry and Waltz who said the schools have to close. The businesses can't open because of the anti-ICE activists and protesters who are blockading the streets. It's not ICE that's shutting their businesses down. So, and look, he said it. They don't share our values. Basically, we're at loggerheads. We're two nations. We're two countries. Now, this is the cancer. And let me just tell you this, okay? As an historian, someone who taught at McGill University, American history, the Harvard of the North. If you study American history, really, the Civil War did not begin in yes, of course, it begins in 1861. But I'm not the only one to point this out. Many historians have said it took about 15 years for the country to have so much hatred on both sides that they just couldn't wait to tear into each other and start shooting at each other. And it was incident after incident, atrocity after atrocity, and slowly the two sections began to hate each other more and hate each other more, and the bonds of union began to rip apart and rip apart and rip apart, that by the time it got to 1861, everybody, they couldn't wait to go at it. They couldn't wait to start shooting and killing each other. Ever since Barack Hussein Obama was elected in 2008, notice the division in our nation. They have done everything to pit American against American, race against race, gender against gender, you name it, region against region, class against class. All they do is pit and divide, pit and divide. And I'm sorry, but people are commenting now. You have many conservatives and independents in Minnesota are saying you have no idea how much we hate Tim Walz and Jacob Fry and how much we hate these. Like, we hate them. You don't understand how much we hate them. We hate them. They say, God forgive us. If we could have a gun, we'd take a gun and shoot them. That's how much we hate them. And you can see the hatred on the radical left. When Trump was nearly assassinated, they cheered. Their only complaint was the bullet didn't finish him off. Look what happened with Charlie Kirk when he was gunned down. They cheered openly. When ICE agents are assaulted or rammed or attacked, they cheer. Look, let's be honest, okay? Let's just all be honest. Entre nous, as the French say, among us. If Rene Good ran over and killed Jonathan Ross, Tim Walz and Jacob Fry and the Democrats and those anti-ICE rioters and insurrectionists would be cheering the death of Jonathan Ross. I'm sorry, it's true. And so there's so much hatred now that has built up on both sides. And that's what Waltz and Fry that's what they're preying on right now. Now, it's not inevitable. Nothing is inevitable. History doesn't have to repeat itself, especially if you know it and you learn it and you teach it, which is the one thing our schools don't do, but let that go. But we can't repeat the mistakes of the past. And the biggest mistake of the past is when they started to wage insurrections in the South, the North let it go on and on and on and on until finally the bonds of union snapped. And you had Fort Sumter, and boom, we were off to by the way, the Civil War to this day, just so that people understand, was the bloodiest, most murderous war that America has ever been involved in. In fact, it was so bloody and so murderous, more Americans were killed and died in the Civil War than all of the other wars combined. 1776, 1812, 1848, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. All of those Americans that died in all those wars, put them together, and it still doesn't reach the level of the Civil War. Because nothing is more bloody and deadly than a civil war when brothers and sisters go at each other. It's the most vicious, evil thing in the world. And that's what Waltz and Fry are now openly inciting. Openly inciting now. Now, let me just say one other thing, and then I want to go back to the phone lines. I'm really being serious as a heart attack. I think Tim Waltz is a mentally ill man. I think he's seriously mentally ill. You see him deliver that speech yesterday with those fanatical, kooky eyes and the explosive, insane, incendiary language that comes out of his mouth, the lies that come out of his mouth. He's a bomb thrower. He's a fanatic. Honest to God, he's crazy. No, let me tell you, I can't swear, but he's effing crazy. This guy is effing crazy. And so is Fry. You look at him, you could tell, like they're unhinged. You're like, no, there's something like the elevator they've got a screw loose. The elevator doesn't go to the top, both of them. Like, do you listen to yourself talk? I don't know if Waltz is having a nervous breakdown. I don't know if he's, just doing the bidding of his Chinese paymasters or the Democratic Party. I don't know, and at this point, I don't care. This man, if you can believe it, was Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. He was the vice presidential nominee for the National Democratic Party in the 2024 presidential election. This freaking lunatic? This political terrorist? As I told Sandy in our pre-show production meeting, because we're going through the cuts, and Sandy's like, I can't, she's stunned. She goes, the stuff that's coming out of his mouth, it's un-American. This is not a third world banana republic where you call for political terrorism and violence on the streets and revolution. Please, whatever you're doing, stop. You need to pay attention. This broke. It is now everywhere. Look, I'm not saying it was this show. Please, I'm not that arrogant. I'm not that full of hubris. But I've always told you this. Trump's people listen to this show. I know they see us as a very important gauge of opinion for America First, for the MAGA movement. And so shows like mine, I'm not the only one, but shows like mine, we have an influence. This show has an influence. I'm telling you, trust me, take it to the bank. And I think Trump is now hearing us. In fact, I know he's hearing us. And so this is the statement that he just recently released on Truth Social. It is now everywhere. Quote, I'm going to read it to you word for word. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What he's basically saying is he's telling he had to respond after last night. And I don't just mean the rioting and the street fighting. I'm talking what Waltz said on TV and what Frey said at the press conference. He had no choice. They forced his hand. And he said, I can't. This is getting out of control. I can't. The country's going to unravel. And so what he's telling them, he's giving them one last chance. He's saying, listen, idiots, you village idiots over there. I don't want to bring in the military, because that's what the Insurrection Act does. It gives the president the right to send in military troops into an area within the United States. And he's saying, I don't want to go heavy. I don't want to bring in the military. But if you guys keep fomenting rioting and insurrection and violence, and you guys keep deliberately obstructing and harassing and sabotaging ICE, you're going to force my hand. If you don't like it now, wait till I bring in 10, 15, 20,000 U.S. troops. And we start cleaning out the entire city and the entire state. So he's basically telling Tampon Tim and that idiot, little Jacob, okay, the mayor, Jacob Fry, knock it off now. They basically have 24 to 48 hours. If they continue, and I suspect they will, that's how unhinged they are. I'm telling you, Trump's invoking the Insurrection Act. So let me now ask you, Trump has now put it on the table squarely, directly. He's now giving them one last chance. He's telling them, if this continues, another 24, 36, 48 hours, and you're going to have the Insurrection Act. It's been done by presidents before. I'm going to do it, and you're going to have no one to blame but yourselves. Should President Trump invoke the Insurrection Act? And let me just add a little qualification to that. If or when President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act and sends in thousands and thousands of U.S. troops into Minneapolis, into Minnesota, do you support him? Would you support Trump sending in the U.S. military into Minnesota? I say yes. You know me, I'm behind it all the way, but I want to hear from you. Chris in Chelmsford. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and good morning. I think it would be good. I just have one question. I hope that they do not come to Boston.
Oh, you mean the troops or Waltz and Fry?
No. What happened? What happened last Tuesday or Wednesday to this woman, Nicole something?
No, Renee Nicole Good. Renee, her name is Renee.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm referring to. What I'm saying is, I hope that doesn't happen here and there in Boston.
Oh, I agree, Chris. I completely agree with you. I would not want to see this. I don't want to see it anywhere. Look, I don't want to be a broken record here. I adopted my boy, Ashton, from Minnesota. I call him, literally, that's my nickname, my miracle from Minnesota. I've been to Minnesota. I love Minnesota. Look, I'm a big Patriots fan. Don't get me wrong. You know, the football team, the New England Patriots. But my number one team in honor of Ashton is the Minnesota Vikings. I love the Patriots. I always root for the Patriots, but the Vikings are my number one team. Why? Because that's where I adopted my boy. And so I remember Ashton and I were very young, and I made a pact with him. And I said, you know, you're my miracle from Minnesota, so from now on, I'm going to be a Vikings fan. And so I even have pictures of him and me when he was very young. He was wearing a Vikings purple jersey, and I was wearing a Vikings purple jersey, and so was Grace, and so was everyone in our family. My in-laws, my sister, everybody. We all put on a Vikings jersey in honor of Ashton. Because, you know, we got him at 18 months old from Minnesota. And I met the people of Minnesota. I know how well they treated me and Grace and our family while we were there. Because when you adopt a child, you have to be in that state for at least 30 days. So what I'm saying is we spent almost 2 months in Minnesota in total. And how nice they were. I'm sorry, I get emotional when I talk about my children, so forgive me. But I think of my Ashton, 18 months old. This was in 2010. We adopted him in 2010. In 2012. What am I saying? So, but he was born in 2010. So we were there in 2012. That was 13 years ago. And I'll never forget that till the day I die. To see what they're doing to Minneapolis, to see what they're doing to Minnesota. Really, I'm telling you, it's a beautiful state. God, it's one of the most beautiful places on God's green earth. It's just the lakes, the fishing, just overall, the people are so nice, so decent, so friendly. That's the scary thing. If it could happen there, my God, it could happen anywhere. So I take no pleasure in this, believe me. That's why I'm hoping and praying that they will back down so Trump doesn't have to send in the troops. But something tells me they won't. And so we're heading now for a confrontation. Look, let me just say this because I want to go to Tommy in Boston. I want to go to all of you. This is my suspicion. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I think that was their plan. And I'm not saying Trump is doing the wrong thing. He's doing the right thing. But I think their plan was create so much chaos and violence and an insurrection and anarchy that Trump would have no choice but to call in the U.S. troops. And they believe then that will lead to even more protests, possibly even political terrorism on the streets of Minneapolis and Minnesota. And they can start taking shots at troops. And boom, they've started what they've always wanted, a civil war. And this time, they're not shooting at federal immigration or federal enforcement officials. Now they're actually shooting at troops, the way in 1861, where they were shooting at Union troops, U.S. military troops. And I think ultimately that's their secret plan. And then see violence, real violence, break out on the streets, gunshots, street to street fighting, gun battles. And then the Democrats turn and say, see, we told you, he's a dictator. Look at this. Cities are burning. Cities are under military occupation. I think, and look at the violence. Look at this. This is all Trump. That's what, in other words, to try to completely derail and destroy his presidency. So I hope that if Trump does invoke the Insurrection Act, you don't go light, you go really heavy. Like really heavy. And you just start making mass arrests. And this thing is over in 1 week. And Waltz and Fry in handcuffs. Enough. Agree, disagree. Tommy in Boston. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you so much, Jeff. Jeff, I must remember I'm an immigrant. I came into this great country and was lucky to have a country to come to get away from what's going on here now in this beautiful country. But the procedure for me to become legal was, okay, Mr. Bannon, here's your authorization card to work and pay taxes. And so after 4 years of paying taxes and working and being responsible, I came back to them. They looked in the computer and they were happy with what they saw. And they said, well, this is good, Mr. Bannon. Now what we'd like you to do is we need you to do the history for 2 years. I did that. And then, Jeff, I passed that exam and became a citizen of the United States of America, an emotional, proud moment. I looked up at the flag waving in the wind. So, Jeff, I'm very grateful to be in America right now, especially with what's going on in my country, Ireland. So, Jeff, my country, Ireland, and Europe is gone. There is no election or anything going to bring it back. It's funny. The governments are bringing in people, and this man is trying to get them out. And they're trying to shoot this man here. But, Jeff, we're in dangerous times. This is not political. This is good versus evil. And I'll tell you what, I was a Democrat all my life, and they left me, so I became an independent because I didn't want to be, associated with evil. And that's what's happening right now, evil. But look at my country. If I could bring some of these doubters over to Ireland to see the way my country is gone unrecognizable, and the God part is gone. I'm not a religious man, I'm a spiritual man. But if you check the story of Enoch Burke in Ireland, a teacher, a good man, spiritual man, wouldn't say the transgender word when he was forced to a student, so they put him in jail. And he's been in jail and his family persecuted. And they took him out of jail the other day for a hearing with chains around his waist for not saying the transgender word. The government has done all this. They emptied his bank account. They have persecuted this man. If I could bring these doubters to Ireland for a half a day to see what illegal immigration has done. But all this trouble that's going on, Jeff, is started by one man here, Mr. Biden, by opening our border, and that's traitorship. That's been a traitor as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you nailed it. Tommy, look, brilliant. I thought it was a brilliant mini monologue that you delivered in that call. I would just quibble with you on one word, and I'm not trying to be a nitpicker. I say this from the bottom of my heart. When you say my country, Ireland, I disagree with you. Your country now is America, and I welcome you as a fellow American. This is our country. Ireland was your former country, your ancestral country, like Canada was my former country. I came from Canada, you came from Ireland. And both Canada and Ireland are going down the tubes. It's because of socialism and because of illegal immigration. And by the way, I know that case very well. I've been following it. And you're right. He's a good, decent man, a brilliant teacher, school teacher, who simply did not want to kowtow to the transgender ideology and the transgender movement. And he said, no, I'm not going to call somebody a she if that person is a he, or if that person is a he, call that person a she. I'm not going to deny biological reality. I'm not. And for this, they have put him in jail, in prison, until he recants. And you're right. They let him out one day to go to court where they're going to crucify this man. And you're right. They had him in chains. It's shocking what has happened. Frankly, not just to Ireland, to most of Europe. Freedom of speech is dead. Freedom of thought is dead. Here, I'll just give you another one very quick. This is England, okay, which obviously neighbors Ireland. There was a woman who has now been thrown in jail for years, put in prison behind bars for praying outside of an abortion clinic in England. But listen to this. She didn't even pray out loud. She just stood in front of the clinic. That's all she did. And she was praying inside her head. She was holding a rosary in her hand. That's all she did. She's standing there. Think of an old lady holding a rosary. And the police officer walked up to her and he said, well, what are you thinking? Are you praying in your head? And she was honest. And she said, yeah, I'm praying in my head for the unborn babies. So she just said, yeah, this is in my mind. Not even out of my mouth, in my mind. Bang, they arrested her on the spot. Because they have these so-called hate speech laws in Britain. An old lady was thrown in jail, is now rotting behind bars. Not even, well, I can't even say praying, because to pray you have to be out loud, for praying in her mind in front of an abortion clinic. Freedom of speech is dead. Freedom of thought is dead. Freedom of expression is dead. Democracy is dead. And England, like Ireland, is now being overwhelmed with Muslim immigration. Illegal Muslim third world immigration. And listen, Tommy, you're very honest and I admire your bravery. Europe is finished. It breaks my heart to say it. Europe is finished. And Trump is saying Europe may go down, but I'm not going to let America go down. And that's the pivotal battle now that we're facing. And you're right. It's a spiritual, religious battle. It's a battle. It's a moral, spiritual, religious war between good and evil. And evil now is in the streets of Minneapolis. And we have to prevail at all costs. Tommy, please call again, my fellow American. James in Scituate. Thanks for holding, James, and welcome.
Day.
Hi, James.
The only thing I want to say, two quick things. We went through Kuhner withdrawal during your vacation. We're so glad you're back.
Thank you, James.
I'm not as heavy as the last two calls, but just a quick thought on why the ICE and the police in that area haven't used the canine squads, the patrol patrol dogs to control the crowds. I mean, have you ever seen a canine dog in action against crowd control?
It works. I got to tell you, those dogs scare the hell out of me, James.
If you had a dog snarling at you with his teeth and everything, you're not going to stay around. I know we talked about water cannons, but I don't know how that works. You got to drag in big tanks of water, but I've seen dogs work in crowd control, and it works. And you just push that crowd back, keep them moving back, and let the dogs do their job.
James, Trump now is basically, look, this is it. They got a final chance. He's on the verge now of invoking the Insurrection Act. I think it's inevitable. I think it's coming in the next 24 to 48 hours. Do you support him? Is it time to send in the troops?
I'm former military, 4 years active duty, Air Force, 1 year flight combat, and I support him. I took the pledge. I support him 100%. It's actually scary because, you do that, and I support him. And obviously he listens to your show. I can tell because you talk about it, and it's happening. But if it has to be done for this country, and I put all my trust in the president and all of his cabinet and his leaders, but it can be a little frightening. I'm sure, you're going to hear about it in the news, dictator, insurrection, and it's scary, but I do support him 100%.
Yeah, look, to defend the president, and I agree with you completely, James, on every point that you made. He doesn't want to do it. And I'm not saying this as a criticism. I'm saying, what American president wants to send U.S. military troops on American soil? It's the ultimate last resort. And that's why he's been patient. He's waiting. He's warning them. He sent in thousands of more ICE agents. He's like, come on, knock it off. He's given them chance after chance. Honestly, James, it's like me when I discipline my children. I hate to do it. I really hate to do it. My family criticizes me, my wife, my sister-in-laws, all of them. They say, be a man, spank the kids once in a while, send them to their room, whatever, send them to the corner, whatever it is, time out. Jeff, what's wrong with you? Be a man. I hate to do it. And I give him chance after chance after chance. But I'm telling you, sometimes you've got no choice. And it's a spanking. And he's going to have to spank Waltz and spank Fry. And he's basically saying, I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. But okay. And now Daddy's home. Daddy is now home, James. And these little spoiled, petulant, angry children, they're in for a world of hurt. I wouldn't want to be them when Trump gives the order to bring in the troops. James, thank you so much for that call. Eddie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Kuhner man. Hey, Sebago Lake, Maine.
Eddie.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you, my friend? Much better now that Trump is on the cusp of invoking the Insurrection Act.
That's what I say. Lay the hammer down, baby. But this is just my opinion. I think it would have been a lot easier if the police would have stood behind more with Trump. Trump is always helping them, praising them, doing everything. I feel like they turning their back on the man for this mayor and this governor that is being coached by Barack Hussein Obama. And one other thing, I hope I'm wrong, but God forbid one of these what do you call them? The ones that are doing the job there, the police, not the police, the
ICE agents?
Yeah, the ICE agents. Forgive me. When I start speaking, I lose my train of thought.
That's okay.
If one of those ICE agents get killed in Minnesota, they will drag him to the streets, just like they did to our soldiers over there, where they got killed over there in Somaliland there. And I hope I'm wrong, but it will happen. So I just hope that the police will step up and do more protection of these ICE agents. Because I don't want to see that happen. And President Trump, whatever you do, I am behind you.
Well, God bless you. Eddie, look, thank you very much for that call. I got to be careful. I can just tell you this. The people that I'm talking to in Minneapolis are saying your rank and file police officer are not with Fry and they're not with Waltz. Okay, I think another reason why Trump issued that Truth Social Joe just about over an hour ago about he's on the verge. He's on the cusp of invoking the Insurrection Act unless Tim Walz and Jacob Fry do a dramatic 180-degree U-turn, is this. Ilhan Omar, some people did something, was speaking to protesters yesterday as they were rampaging through the streets while standing in the back of a pickup truck. And she was basically saying that revenge and retribution is coming to these ICE agents for daring to come into Minneapolis and arresting illegals, especially for her, Somali illegals. Roll cut 14, Mike.
We are going to show all of them the door out. And we are going to make sure that these people pay for what they have done to us.
I mean, her father was a Marxist, served in a Marxist regime in Somalia, personally oversaw the torture and murder of thousands of people who oppose the regime. She is a red diaper baby. She is a Marxist communist revolutionary and an Islamist. So when she says we're going to teach them a lesson, when she says we're going to show them, they're going to pay for what they've done, she's not playing around. So they want to punish ICE, because ICE is, to every illegal they arrest, is one less vote for Ilhan Omar, Fry, and Walz. And that's why now they've declared war on ICE and, in many ways, the federal government itself. John in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, John.
First of all, before I get to my point, Tommy, I love hearing immigrant stories on how they became citizens, went through, the process and became citizens. Just something emotional about those kinds of stories. Both sides of my family. My mother's side, I'm about 9 times removed. My grandfather was Francis Eaton, who came over on the Mayflower, was 8th or 9th signer of the Mayflower Compact. And on my father's side, my grandparents were immigrants from Italy back in the 20s. So it's pretty awesome. I love hearing that stuff. My point, Jeff, you're the historian. Please tell those who have forgotten or those who just don't know at all. All of the agitators that were used in revolutions like Lenin, Stalin, Pol Pot, what happened to all the agitators and the professors in college that did the brainwashing? What happened to them when the revolutionaries, when these leaders, if that's what you want to call them, when they believed the revolution was complete? What happened to all those agitators?
Oh, they either were sent to the gulags, they were sent to prison, or they were murdered. There was a famous expression, the revolution eats its own children. So, in other words, those that gave birth to the revolution end up being devoured by the revolution.
YouTube, if you look up Yuri Bezmenov, he was a former KGB agent in communist Russia, I believe back in the 70s or 80s. He defected to the United States. He gives a pretty good rundown of the process of how it starts and what they're trying to accomplish. It's really good. It was very educational. But yeah, these agitators. That's why Lenin called them the useful idiots, because they have no idea what their future beholds.
Well, John, you nailed it. Look, just sit back objectively, okay? Just Forget everything, all the issues, everything that's at stake. Just objectively. If Tim Walz believes a word that's coming out of his mouth, or Jacob Fry, or Ilhan Omar, okay, especially Walz and Fry, well, why aren't they on the streets? I mean, if it's their words, I'm just using their words now. If this is a brutal occupation, if this is an invasion, if ICE is going door to door looking for people of color and murdering them, and they're just, taking pregnant women and dragging them on the streets and shooting them in the head and throwing them into vans and disappearing them and kidnapping them, and American citizens are being arrested as illegal aliens and being shipped off to El Salvador in these torture prisons. If all this is really happening, well, Tampon Tim, we can send you 3,000 tampons and you can take it to the streets. But notice, he's in a nice sweater. He's in the comfort of his own home. He's out there freezing his rear end off. Fry, I don't see, he was on Fox. He's on CNN. He's doing the media rounds, flapping his mouth. He's holding press conferences. By the way, apparently he's looking for a book deal. He's looking to make money off of this, millions. But he's not out there on the street. So how come they're not protesting? If people are really being murdered and the Nazis and the Gestapo are in Minneapolis and it's an occupation and an invasion and this is it, democracy's ending right now, then why aren't you there? You're urging everybody else to go. Oh, so if someone gets killed, it'll be them, not you. Oh, if somebody gets arrested, it'll be them, but not you. And I can't believe these idiot activists and these rioters and insurrectionists, so-called protesters on the streets. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 603. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Jeff, you can take the girl, Ilhan Omar, out of Somalia, but you can't take Somalia out of the girl. Ilhan Omar comes from a murderous nation known for slavery, piracy, and warlords. Why would we think she would be any different here in the United States? She's showing us who she really is and what she's all about. Bingo. Absolutely 1,000% accurate. She's a thug. And now you see what an Islamo-Marxist thug she is. Now, just super quick, because the lines are blazing. I wanted to play this yesterday. I didn't get time. I want to do it today. In 2016, okay, just 10 years ago, this is CNN, went on a ride-along with ICE agents as they were conducting deportation and enforcement operations in Chicago and other cities. And CNN's tone was 180 degrees opposite of what it is now. Because the difference then was that it was the der Litter. It was Barack Hussein Obama. And it was his DHS and his ICE. And so when Obama was deporting millions, and actually 3 million, millions and millions of illegal aliens using ICE in the very same cities that Trump is, with the exact same tactics, the exact same raids, the exact same ICE personnel. I mean, nothing has changed, except then Obama gave the order. Today it's Trump that gives the order. That's it. Literally, that's it. Going neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door, in some cases, grabbing these illegals with detainers, criminal illegals, arresting them, throwing them in vehicles, and off they're deported. CNN didn't mind. In fact, CNN praised Obama. There was not a single protester on the street. Where was Tampon Tim then? Where was Jacob Fry then? Where were all these anti-ICE insurrectionists and political vigilantes? Where were they then? Nowhere. Because you see, if the party does it, if the Democrats do it, then it's okay. But if it's Trump, then burn it all down. Now, just to give you a taste, here's a taste. This is video from 2016. This is the press corps asking then Obama's press secretary, remember him? I used to call him Josh Disearnest. Well, Josh Earnest. And they're asking about all these raids in all of these cities to get rid of these illegal aliens. Look at how the questions are asked. Look at the response. And look how meek and positive and accepting the sycophantic press corps was just 10 years ago. Roll cut 21, Mike.
There have been reports that the Department of Homeland Security and ICE have begun removal operations, I think what they're calling it, others are calling it raids, against Central American families who came across the border illegally over the past year and a half. And some of the reports suggest that, families, the Los Angeles Times quoted a woman saying that her family in Georgia, ICE agents came in, looked room to room, woke up her own kids, they were shaking with fear. Wondering if the administration can confirm that those operations have begun and whether the White House has had input directly with DHS about how those operations should be handled and whether there are any concerns about striking fear into the communities, including those who may be here legally, living with some of these other folks as these are carried out.
Mm-hmm. David, for individual operations, I'd refer you to the Department of Homeland Security, and they can discuss with you individual operations that were carried out.
Go to DHS. Now watch, okay? Watch. Listen now, because again, the press is like, well, but they're going after illegals here. Watch. Roll cut 21A. Mike.
What I can tell you is that the Department of Homeland Security has prioritized the cases of recent arrivals, individuals who recently crossed the border into the United States without proper documentation. And those, again, based on public statements, including a statement that was recently issued by the Secretary of Homeland Security, were the nature of the operations that were carried out over the last several days. This is consistent with the kinds of priorities that the president himself has talked about.
Notice, and by the way, the press corps is just nodding up and down. And they're taking notes. Okay, prioritize. By Obama. Well, okay. Hey, then you can strike fear in any community you want. It's their leader. Oh, okay. They weren't yelling, screaming, shouting, fascism, Hitler, Nazis, the KKK, white supremacy. Not a single activist or protester on the streets. Not one. 3 million deported. Not one. Not one. I'm talking same rates, same tactics, same mission. In many cases, same ICE agents, just a little bit younger. That's all. Nothing. So you see, under Obama, it's okay. Same thing. Under Trump, it's the end of the world. It's a dictatorship. You phonies, you frauds, you. Rob in Maine. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Rob.
Thanks for all you're doing, and please stop me if one of your great listeners has already sort of said what I'm about to say. It's a slightly different take on things. I'm just bringing up the fact that, insurrection acts and dogs moving crowds back and martial law and all this stuff. People are afraid when they see that, but really that's part of two things that we have in our favor. One, we have a leader who's been remarkably successful in under a year at doing stuff that he said he was going to do. And number two, we have our constitutional republic, which is the model for dozens of other countries that have come on board over the past couple hundred years. And we need to just step back a bit and have a little bit of faith and say, gee, we've survived so many things as a country. We've got a great constitution. We've got a great republic.
Some changes were made in it, which aren't always best, but still, it's a model for people. And we've got a leader that knows how to use it. So let's just try to take heart and think about President Lincoln in the first few months of the Civil War, when things weren't going very well for the generals on our side up here. And he just had the faith, and he had the strength to carry on using the mechanisms that exist at our use now. And I just wanted to bring all that up and place a little bit in perspective in that regard, Jeff.
Oh, Rob, look, you're, as I like to say, not 100, but 1,000% correct. Look, I always say this, never bet against America. And we've got I believe Trump, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but it has to be said. I believe that God saved President Trump on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. I believe it was the hand of God. And I believe it was to save the United States. And I think he's the right leader at the right time at this right moment. And, look, my fear is that things are going to escalate out of control. But now, with him invoking, or potentially now invoking, the Insurrection Act, he's gonna nip this in the bud. The only way that they could have succeeded with this is if there was continued paralysis and inaction at the federal level. But now that Trump is telling them clearly and unequivocally, you have to knock this off. If not, I'm sending in the troops. It's over. It's over for Waltz, it's over for Fry, and it's over for this insurrection. So that's why, I was pushing him, but now that he's on the verge of doing it, make no mistake about it, Trump is going to bury Tim Waltz, and he's going to bury Jacob Fry. And my prediction, he's going to get a massive bounce in the polls. And Minnesota, Republicans are going to sweep Minnesota in November. Chris in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Hey, so let's see what you're trying to say here. That regarding the shooting, that this woman was trying to prevent officials from doing their jobs. She had no business being there, refused to follow orders, determined to be a threat, and then was shot. Is that what you're saying?
Chris the commie. Hey, where have you been, my communist friend?
I've been rallying against this fascist as much as I can.
Yeah, so I know. You're imaginary fascist. You don't know what a fascist is. That's the sad thing. And the fact that you teach students in schools, I told you, name me the school, I'll get you fired. You have no business being around kids. You're a Marxist communist thug. You even sound like a thug. But just for the record, yes, we all saw the video, the witnesses. She was parking her car perpendicular on the street while ICE was trying to conduct a legitimate law enforcement operation. She was blocking and impeding them, which is a crime. And then she was told repeatedly to get out of her car. She refused to get out of her car. One ICE agent, in fact, even grabbed the handle of her car, her door, to get her to come out. She refused. She then backed up the car. She then hit the accelerator. There was another ICE agent that was right there in front of the car, and she was going to run him over. And that's why he jumped out of the way, and even jumping, he got hit. And he had to fire 3 shots in self-defense. It's the most legitimate self-defense shooting you'll ever see. And the lies that you and your fellow Antifa thugs are spreading is disgusting. You said he wasn't even hit. It now turns out the hospital records prove not only did he go to the hospital, he suffered from internal bleeding in his torso. So yes, this woman had no business being there. She has no right to impede or obstruct law enforcement. And if you try to ram or run over a law enforcement officer, they have the right to shoot in self-defense. Where's the flaw in my argument, Chris the commie?
It's the hypocrisy. Everything you just said, Ashley Babbitt did twice as badly, and you defended her. She violated her military oath, and you defended her. So my point is that you're just
no. Well, first of all, you're admitting that it was a lawful shooting. So then why are you calling ICE fascists? That's number one. Number two, well, yeah, because you're just saying it's the same thing. Now, as for Ashley Babbitt, I don't want to revisit it, but, I mean, would it kill you to read a newspaper or read a book? She was leaving She was unarmed. She posed no threat to Lieutenant Byrd, none whatsoever. He shot her in the neck. She wasn't going to run him over with a 2-ton vehicle. She never weaponized the vehicle and threatened to run him over and kill him. So he was in no imminent threat whatsoever. That was cold-blooded murder. And you know what I find most disgusting about people like you? Is that one day a year, January 6th, is the only day you guys celebrate law enforcement. That's the only day when they're shooting Trump supporters and military veterans. You see the bloodlust in you, the Marxist communist thug in you. You love it. Let's be honest. Come on, you love it. But 364 days the rest of the year, you hate the cops. You hate law enforcement. That's why you're siding with these terrorists and insurrectionists on the streets. I mean, you're going to call ICE a bunch of fascists? So let me ask you, tell me, just in the last 36 hours, they've arrested 10 convicted murderers, illegal aliens in Minneapolis. They've captured 3 convicted rapists. One of them, a child rapist who was convicted of sodomizing a 10-year-old boy and sodomizing a 10-year-old girl. So let me ask you, Mr. Commie, why do you side with murderers, rapists, and child molesters? Why do you want to keep them in America? Explain that to me.
Okay, firstly, Ashley Babbitt was crawling through a window. I saw the video, you liar. Out of 60,000 Somalis in Minnesota.
I don't care. I don't care if she's crawling through a window. She was unarmed. She wasn't in a car trying to ram him. So what threat did she pose? She was an unarmed woman and he shot her in the neck. Move on. Next point.
Okay, so out of 60,000 Somalis, 85 have been criminally indicted. 0.1%. Out of 4,000 people in the Trump regime.
That's on the fraud. No, hey, whoa. That's on the fraud. 85 out of 98. But we're not talking. I just cited to you murderers and rapists. Several of them are Somalis. How come you don't want them deported? Why is it being a Nazi or a fascist if you want to deport mass murderers and child molesters? Why do you support murderers and child molesters? Explain that to me, Mr. Commie.
I don't, fascist Jeff. You support a child rapist in Trump and a pedophile.
Right. Trump is now a child rapist. Trump is now. Who did he rape? Which child did he rape?
It might have been his daughter, but we're not sure about that.
Might have been his daughter. You see? Look at you now. You sound like an absolute idiot. And by the way, are you still teaching kids in school?
A pedophile protector. That's what you are.
A pedophile protector. Right. Who did Trump, yeah, I know he hung up because he's a loser. Because I just defeated him. Again, tell me, what child did he rape? What pedophile did he protect? You mean Epstein? You mean the one that he kicked out of his club years before he was arrested? You mean the one that Obama and Biden wouldn't touch? You mean the Democrat donor Epstein?